Now, L. Ron Hubbard, back in the 1930s, was sort of an author, a science fiction author that wasn't successful yet. He was sort of doing little penny dreadful cheap paperbacks. But he did have a hit in the 50s with Dianetics. And Dianetics was when he first sort of came to the public consciousness. And it was basically a self-help book that was lauded as being really helpful to a lot of people. And L. Ron Hubbard went on the lecture circuit and sort of managed to get some bucks out of this, and it was all going rather well. But unfortunately, the interest faded. So L. Ron Hubbard went away, added a bit more material to it, and called it Scientology. But this time, he put in a framework, a money-making framework that, from what I can gather, is like levels of course materials. And as people want to get higher within this bridge to freedom, which is what this coursework or course materials are called, then they have to pay more and more money. Now, Tom Cruise himself said in an interview in 2016 that the earlier parts of the program are secular and very helpful. It's not until you get into the OT levels where things get a little bit funny, let's say. And I'm not going to read out OT level 3. It's out there on the internet if you want to look it up. But L. Ron Hubbard worked into it that you couldn't hear OT3 until you were ready to hear it. In other words, until you'd paid for all the other levels to get to that level. Because if you did and you weren't ready to hear it, you would get sick and die. So no one ever listened to OT3 unless they were legitimately up to that point. But the trouble is that OT3 has had a very big reaction for people that have actually heard it. It's been mocked and ridiculed. It's all about an intergalactic villain who sent people down to the prison planet, which was Earth, and put them into volcanoes. And they were frozen in glycol before they were transported down. And then hydrogen bombs were sort of activated, and then they all died in these volcanoes. I'm probably explaining it really badly. And so then they became sort of these damaged spiritual beings or thetans that attach themselves to you. And these thetans are cleared through auditing and the practices of Scientology. And then the aim is, this bridge to freedom is to go clear. So that's a basic rundown. When L. Ron Hubbard died, David Miscavige was the person who sort of took up the reins as leader. And you'll know him probably from the early 2000s because he was instrumental in really encouraging Tom Cruise to be the face of Scientology in the early 2000s. And it was very effective. You'll remember, you can look it up on YouTube, there's Tom Cruise, really spruiking for Scientology very keenly. And he featured in video promos for Scientology, and he was given the Medal of Valor by Scientology. So, around 2004, it was a very active Tom Cruise public face of Scientology. And David Miscavige was the one who was the main driver behind this. Now, David Miscavige achieved something monumental when he took over the leadership. He was the one that managed to achieve tax-free status and a recognition of Scientology as a church, because at the time they owed a massive amount of money to the IRS. And let's put it this way, if David Miscavige hadn't pulled it off, then there would be no Church of Scientology, because they had $1 billion debt and it would have wiped them out.